So I'm calling this presentation as Situating Practice of Architecture in Indian context. Uh, I'm going to go back a little bit in the history because it's very important to know the history of practices in India. And also it means that I need to touch on the areas of formative circumstances of architectural education in India. It's a very interesting story that I would like to share. So, uh, so just to tell you, the profession in India, architectural profession is roughly around, with architect title is 100-year old. Uh, the first initial circumstances during the colonial time when Bombay School of Art was formulated, known as JJ School of Art, which is one of the oldest institute in Asia, imparting education of art and architecture within one unit. So it was founded in 1857, and Department of Architecture was established in 1913. Now, these are important dates because lots of architectural practices also emerged during that time. Broadly, let you know that this architectural department was established to train not architects, but architectural assistants to help and read the portfolios that come from UK to India to build public buildings. So many public buildings were built during this time using Indian apprenticeship. So the interns from this diploma course would join these practices and support in executing this variety of architecture, largely neo-Gothic architecture, late Gothic architecture, and advent of Art Deco architecture. So this is a phase that I'm referring to. So it was during that time the Bombay Architectural Association was formulated by British architect Claude Batley, uh, who was the first president of this Bombay Architectural Association. And subsequently, Royal Institute of British Architects recognized the course of JJ School of Art in 1920 as a course that will train architectural apprenticeship. And in 1925, Bombay Architectural Association, slowly started conducting RIBA exams in order to facilitate license of architects. It went on till 1930, and subsequently 5-year architecture course was formulated, and which was the first course which is known as Government Diploma in Architecture. This is after 12th standard, which was formulated in 1923. So these are the very formative circumstances. The building that you see is JJ School of Art as of now, very important building, which is actually talking about Gothic, neo-Gothic architecture. So subsequently, in 1929, the Bombay Architectural Association was renamed as an Indian Institute of Architects. IIA is something that exists from 1929. And as of now, IIA, what we call it, is a practice wing of Council of Architecture. I will come to Council of Architecture in next slides. Uh, uh, so one of the chief objective of Indian Institute of Architects is to encourage the study of architecture, to elevate the standard of architectural practice, and by mutual support to promote the interest of architects throughout India. During this time, architecture education and practice were limited to what we call it presidencies, which is Bombay, Madras, Kolkata, and Delhi, four large metros. And other states were really not really in the fold of architectural practice or architectural education. In 1972, I'm just going away from the independence of 47. In 72, Council of Architecture was formed by the Act of Parliament as a governing body of kind of registering architects. So if you call architect in India, It means that you are registered with Council of Architecture. So Architect Act actually defines architect as a person whose name is for the time being entered in register. It means your name is registered with council. The register is the register maintained by Council of Architecture of registered architects. So it basically talks about registered architects, their educational qualifications, when did they graduate, and this is basically a licensing authority where you can use the title architect. Then Council of Architecture expanded their portfolio and entered the discourse of education. How do you really regulate the education of architecture in India? And IIA was trying to regulate the practice of architecture. So Council of Architecture has several responsibilities regarding the education and practice of architecture in India, such as maintaining the register of architects. Of course, parallelly, there are deregistration of architects. There are unethical practices in profession. Those architects were derecognized. Uh, uh, recognition of Institute of Architectural Education. It means they will grant the permission to run the architectural education subject to compliance with standards formed by COA, and setting up a minimum standard of architectural education. And along with that, a very important document that council has embarked on recently is a professional conduct, describing and prescribing standards of professional conduct and ethics of architects in India. So they have published 3 volumes recently talking about variety of code of conducts, the contracts, the engagements of an architects at various scales of projects. So architects regulation that council has prescribed has kind of various condition of engagements between architects and clients. One of the key aspect is architect must inform client of the condition of engagement and scale of charges prescribed by Council of Architecture, and agree that these conditions will be the basis of appointment. Now, when I say client, it means a single client, private client, it could be corporate bodies, state government, central government, and so on and so forth. So fee is structured and the mode of appointments are defined by Council of Architecture. Uh, it also prescribed that you have to compete fairly with other architects. It means you can't really create a speculation on the fees or underquote, which is taken under the fold of council code of conduct. Also, you cannot partner with any person who is not an architect, who is not registered with an architect. It means in order to corporatize the firm, you cannot really engage with someone who is not an architect. Uh, Also, it talks about providing employees with suitable working conditions and pay them fairly, although it does not really define what is the pay scale of the employees. But largely, it says that you need to pay them fairly. Uh, and of course, very important part of ethics of practice is not to advertise your firm or yourself, or not allow your name to be used for any advertising of products or any construction materials that companies try to promote through architects. So you cannot do that. That comes under fold of code of conduct. These are a broad perspective on code of conduct. There are many more details, aspects of code of conduct. One of them is arbitration. In case of any kind of a dispute, there is an arbitration process. And arbitration process doesn't work out, then there is a legal proceedings through which justice can be attained. Uh, just I'm going to take a few slides to explain the nature of practice which were existing pre-independence, post-independence, and some of this indigenous Indian practices, and subsequently contemporary practices. So one of the firm that existed in 1906 was John Begg, basically consulting architects based in Mumbai. Uh, Lutyens, obviously, you would have studied, who planned and designed Delhi, practice mainly from UK to India. Herbert Backer in 1912 basically brought in the Renaissance portfolios, from Europe to India, and many buildings, especially in Delhi, were built at that time. Claude Batley is an important figure because he was the first visiting professor at JJ School of Art in 1914, and he became the director or principal in 1923. So he was one of the few who talked about architecture and Art Deco styles during that time. Many important public buildings designed by Claude Batley in Mumbai. And George Whitted uh, added another layer. We call it Indo-Saracenic architecture. Basically, European architecture and Indian motifs were camouflaged and produced in form of various buildings. Gateway of India or art galleries, large art galleries in Mumbai are some of those practices. And this is exactly and precisely the architectural assistant would help them to translate those portfolios into a building in India. So there are emergence of Indian practices subsequently from this earlier practice. One of the important practice was G.B. Mahatre, architect from Mumbai, uh, produced large amount of Art Deco architecture. What you see in Mumbai Art Deco is largely owed to G.B. Mahatre. Another firm existed similarly time was Master Sathe Bhuta, MSB we call it in a short form. Lots of Art Deco building produced in similar time frame. We at KRVIA has published recently the book on Master Sathe Bhuta, basically talking about covering all the buildings in Mumbai. Vanu Bhuta, 1956. Basically, he was architect from Mumbai, but he was the first architect who uh, tried to move away from historic revivalism architecture and try to bring contemporary Indian architecture, what should be a modern as well as contemporary architecture in India. And one of the prominent project was a Rajghat, uh, basically Gandhi, based on Gandhian philosophy of simplicity of form. And 48, we have Cyrus Jabawala, who built lots of Indian institutes across India. And again, bringing Indian sensibilities, Indian motifs of architecture in India. And we also have practices which are production based. It means you design, you specialized in certain kind of projects. BG Bhatt, again, studied in UK and had a large practice, what we call it corporatized practice from 50 onwards. He designed large number of institutes and theaters, single screen cinemas across India. Kothari and Associates from Delhi and Chennai built large number of uh, buildings for oil companies in India. Karegat produced a lot of institution projects and developers project based on housing in Mumbai. Firoz Kudianwala produced lots of government buildings, including RBI, Reserve Bank of India, and World Trade Center across the nation. So these four prominent practices dominated large chunk of span of practice in India, and they do exist as of now. All these four firms, and there was a phase when new architects arrived after training with the masters uh, from Europe and US. I call it architecture of state. Primarily, you must have heard of B.V. Doshi. Obviously, he got a Pritzker Prize last year. Durga Bajpayee, again similar time frame, worked with Eero Saarinen and built lots of buildings with that sense of fluidity. Habib Rahman, with Bauhaus exposure, brought in modernist ethos, and Charles Correa, all of you would know, designed many public buildings, and of course he planned the city known as Navi Mumbai next to the Mumbai. And of course, there are large infrastructural firms who produce architecture for government of India. Kanvinde, again, a Harvard graduate and formulated practice in Delhi. Pilu Modi, he was the first MP as well as architects, member of parliament and architect. He designed many buildings, but he also played a very pivotal role in shaping IIA and Council of Architecture. Uh, Anant Raje, again, architect from SET, designed many buildings after working with Louis Kahn. And Raj Reval, again, a large firm, still exists, doing a lot of government projects. So these practices are kind of before the contemporary, practices. I call it enterprise, the large firms in India. These are the corporate firms. They have like 300, 400 architects working with them. One of them is HCP Architects in Ahmedabad, uh, formed in 1960, and the second generation has taken over the practice, and almost all the projects that you see, riverfront projects and public buildings, are designed by them. One of the prominent building that HCPL has designed is Parliament, which is recently inaugurated. I&I Design is also a large firm formulated by a group of architects, and they also handle lots of projects from Government of India. Uh, Jana Urban Space. Interestingly, this is a CSR firm. CSR means corporate social responsibility. It means they own a large firm, and under this CSR, it means you invest certain amount of your income into a public benefit, society benefit, and under CSR scheme. So there is a tax benefit under that. And Jana Urban Space handles large town and cities projects across India. They are based in Bangalore. And Perkins Eastman, obviously, American firm, has entered India, and they have a very strong base in Mumbai. And this firm is headed by Indian architects. And there are certain, of course, certain legalities when you practice in India, the foreign firms. Whenever the foreign firms come to India, they have to take permission from Government of India under MCA, that is a corporate laws through which you get the permission, and then you take the permission to Council of Architecture to set the practice. It means you have to recognize your degree equivalent to Indian BArch degree and set your practice in India. So largely, there are three types of practice that exist in India as of now. Primarily, the role of architect is to design or do liaison. Design obviously means your projects are basically you design housing, domestic institutions, and professional kind of enterprise kind of a quality that you have. And you also have parallelly someone else taking care of the permissions, the liaison. And liaison architects are specific architects who only deals with government, who only deals with local municipality. So you will not find any firm doing both. Very rarely you will have these two firms coming together. So liaison architect is always or generally outside the design domain, and they will get the required permissions. And the large beneficiaries of this module is a client, individual client or individual company, or a real estate developer. There are other forms of practice that has taken over the landscape of Indian practices is facilitator, which is a research and a collaborator. Research basically trying to inform the policy through urban realm research, planning research, or environmental policies, and try to influence the policy and the framework so that it could be regulated as well as modified over a period of time. Collaborator actually works with the community, the larger beneficiaries community. They are talking on behalf of community, and they look at more like a participatory approach to project. Many firms are working with this module, and they're quite successful. And there is a role which is adopted by several firms known as mediator, largely non-government organization, NGOs, and capacity building practices, looking at state housing, public amenities, waste management, hygiene, pollution, climate change. And of course, the beneficiaries are state agencies and local agencies. So a lot of projects and especially housing and health and hygiene are initiated by the government of India. And these projects are kind of guided by the mediator agencies who who are in the position to look at and give guidance and suggestions to state agencies. So these are the new forms of practice, moving away from primary practice of design and liaison. Now, there are other aspects of practice, the legality, the uh, legal framework through which form a kind of a practice. So on a vertical axis, you have variety of forms of practices, and on a horizontal axis, SML, XL, which is small, medium, large, and extra large practice. So proprietary firms are basically small and medium projects they handle. They are like a small organization, group of 10, 15, 20, or 25 architects working with them. And uh, you are the sole taxpayer of the firm. There are partnership firms where you engage with another partner, and projects that one really takes care of is medium and large projects, which is many firms are working with that. Currently, the lot of foreign firms, the firms from outside India, are working with LLP, which is a limited liability partnership. LLP has certain tax framework, and it works largely with the large scale projects like Perkins Eastman. I know they tie up with local firms on a project basis, and once the project is over, you withdraw your stake in the company, and then you enter another project. But Perkins Eastman have started with LLP, and now they've established their base. So they've moved to kind of a private limited company, which is a group of people, what we call it directors. They formulate this a company, and projects they handle largely are large projects and extra large projects. And of course, there are large corporate firms, public limited companies. They are formed by large industrialists known as Tatas and Reliance, and they do extra large projects, mainly focusing on townships, city scale projects, and large infrastructure projects benefiting the cities. So these are the broad typologies of nature of practice and nature of project that you handle. But simultaneously, there are other firms, as I said, participatory and community projects. These are 6 forms that are coded in colors that you see on the all 4 sides. And nature of engagement they have with the community through a participatory approach. So they look at bottoms-up approach, what community wants, which includes housing, health, infrastructure, amenities, and so on and so forth. And of course, a lot of firms are looking at what we call it local area plan. It means they look at certain areas, and they look at mobilizing these areas through a development plan and suggest the government the possible ways of changing the land use or create the alternate land use and create a kind of a place, space, and work areas for communities. One of the pioneer in this form, in this kind of nature of form, is Spark. Spark is Bombay-based organization, and they do a lot of slum redevelopment projects in situ. Uh, Another project is Urban Design Research Institute, originally formed by Charles Korea, and Rahul Mehrotra is a trustee as of now. They do a lot of public projects through research and influencing policies. Herbs is organized by another architect from, I think, from US, and he has a local partner here. And lots of projects in slums is handled by Herbs, and very interesting firm. They do very interesting projects. Uh, and of course, lots of foreign firms which have established partnership with local architect. So you have Banduk Smith Architects in Ahmedabad, looking at various types of projects from housing to institutions. We have architects Brayo, a Dutch architect, and a architect for Mumbai. They are looking at several projects in and around Mumbai. But one of the successful firm is CCBA, Charles Benninger Associates. I'm sure you all must have heard of Charles Benninger. He's a graduate of University of Florida, and initially he entered India with partnership with B.V. Doshi. They worked on several projects. Charles Benninger slowly became Indian citizen, and now he has a full-fledged firm in India, and several hundred architects work under him. And the client of CCBA is directly the government of India. Lots of projects, institutional projects, is handled by Charles Benninger. And who gets the license? There is a trajectory. This slide is actually talking about the nature of transformation that has happened over the period of almost 50 years. So in the beginning, you had a civil engineer dual license. It means if you're a civil engineer, you could practice as an architect as well. There is another type that emerged subsequently, the civil engineer and GDR graduates, government diploma architecture graduates, both of them would get license. The third phase, when you have a civil engineer, GDR, and you have Indian Institute of Architects conducting exams for civil engineers to become an architect. So they also came under fold. The fourth phase, when BR was subsequently formed at JJ School of Architecture. So all four categories would get license. Subsequently, COA, Council of Architecture, put embargo on this, and they created this new framework. You need 5-year full-time BR degree, and then only you are eligible for license. Now, all these 5 categories, you get license with your certificate. It means moment you graduate, you have the license. This practice is still going on in India. But now Council of Architecture is moving towards lots of guidelines coming from US and British context, that you appear for Council of Architecture registration exam after 3 years of experience with BRs. It means there will be exam that you need to clear in order to use the title architect. So this is something that is going to happen very soon, and this will be regulated by Council of Architecture, and they will have various centers across India conducting these exams on behalf of Council of Architecture. Just to tell you a little bit about Council of Architecture, they regulate education, and they have created this central exam in order to take admission in architecture, known as NATA, National Aptitude Test of Architecture. And you have to take this exam in order to study architecture. So this is a prerequisite. And largely now coming to my own self, I graduated in '86, and I attended University of Miami, Florida in '88 to '90. And '91, I came back to India. And '92, I joined KRVIA as a visiting faculty, and also started my firm known as Manoj Parmar Architects, MPA. And slowly I became part of KRVIA as a kind of a tenured faculty, contractual faculty. I headed a postgraduate program for almost 12 years. Currently, from 21 onwards, I'm a director of KRVIA. And also, along with my academic activity, I have published 3 books. One book for the book, which is the Unraveling Redevelopment in Mumbai by Routledge, where we are talking about the nature of transformation through new rules and regulations in Mumbai. The second book was Smart City in India, Laboratory Paradigm or Trajectory, that I have published with Dr. Binti Singh, who is the Dean of KRVI for Research. The third publication, which is again a Routledge publication, which is Resilience and Southern Urbanism, which was published last year. and which was launched by MIT. And on practice front, when I started, we used to handle design practice of housing, and interiors projects. But due to change in policy in 2000, roughly 2002, lots of existing housing stocks began to go under redevelopment. It means you demolish that building and you rebuild that building. And this is a major practice in recent times. So my practice has shifted from earlier small scale to a large scale housing project. And this will continue for, looks like, for many years. And because the state is interested in, redeveloping entire stock of housing, create new stock of housing in city like Mumbai, and try to resolve so-called affordable housing and housing for all policy. So this is where I am right now, and I wish to continue this redevelopment for many years from now onwards. And I will be happy to share some of our projects later on. And with this, I end my presentation, and I thank you, Alberto, for inviting me for this lecture. And I also like to thank Vandana, who's a faculty at University of Florida School of Built Environment. Thank you very much.
Manoj, thank you very much. And I truly apologize. I was
Oh,
working,
hi, Alberto. How are you?
I was working on my yard and I was so meditative and
All right.
forgot the rest
No
of the
issue.
world.
So I took the
But
permission to start the presentation early. I mean, they agreed, so I said okay.
yeah,
Right.
it was a great presentation. Maybe I would begin with my question. Yeah, in India right now, in order for you to get a license with 5 years degree, do you require a master degree or master degree? Because I think in the past in the US, master degree is for those who want to teach. So we could also get a license with 5 years bachelor. But somehow along the way, we changed the model to become like 4 years bachelor and 2.5 or 3 years master degree, which I think is actually I like the old way better than the new way. But how's the future of practice academia structure in India?
So I'll just go back to your first question about, fire architecture. Fire have existed for many years, and council is seriously thinking about converting 5-year architecture into a 4-year architecture. So which should come in, which is a part with many other countries. And the only issue is that India, we have 2-year master's program, and they recognize only 2-year master's program. So they don't recognize anything less than 2 year. If you have less than 2-year master's degree, you need to apply to the central government. There is a body which looks at your credits and qualifies your degree as equal to Indian degree. So this is a very important step. So a lot of degrees that the foreign degrees, when they come to India for practice, they have to go through this route, and then this department really suggests Council of Architecture basically to look at the equivalence. But once 4-year, once I believe that once we move into the 4-year BRs program, I think they will reduce MARC program from 2 years to 1.5 year. So this is a possible changes that is likely to come. And uh, however, what I believe that after BArch degree, the 3-year experience will be necessary, which is and after masters, you need to have 1.5 year experience necessary. So these are going to be a new game changer in very soon, I think. And then there will be an exam that they will take.
Thank you. Any questions from students?
I was just wondering if there's like maintenance credits, like once you get your license, you know, like how you kind of have to keep up with your education?
Once you get license, I mean, you have nothing to do with academics. I mean, unless you are into academics, there is nothing like that. So you are actually, you got a license and you practice. So yeah, so it's a little strange thing right now, but I think it's changing slowly.
Mhm, mhm. Can Indian architects practice in some of the Commonwealth nation, or are they
Yeah,
any equalizing system?
yeah. That's a interesting question. We have 5-year degree, so we had a Reba accreditation board coming to India. Mainly, Reba board constitute architects from all Commonwealth countries. So we have representative coming from UK, Australia, South Africa, I mean neighboring countries, New Zealand. Uh, they visit and they look at the part one, which is a 3-year program. So part one actually is a 3-year, which is equal to their bachelor degree in UK or any other Commonwealth country. And part two is next 2 year. So they validate this 2 year. Moment you are equal, then you can either transfer the credit or you can go and practice in those countries.
Any other question from student?
You said that you need like to take an exam to start studying architecture, right? So is it just for architecture or any other?
Well, yes, it is for all. You want to study medicine, you want to study engineering, you want to study all kind of disciplines. You need to. There is an entrance exam.
Okay, and right now you don't need like to take an exam to be licensed, right?
Yeah. Now we don't have that process, but it will be implemented very soon.
Okay, thank you.
In the US, in the past, Manoj, after the graduated from master, they have 5 years experience working and they get licensed. It's really elaborate. So many students did not get licensed, at least
Yeah.
soon after graduate, and that's actually a problem for many of them. So this seminar is one of the 4 seminar that we are doing this, and then they can get take exam while they are in school, and then when they
Right.
graduate, they can either immediately become licensed or maybe not so long from their graduation. So that's the purpose of this
Yeah. It's a
program.
great subject. I mean, it's a nice thing to really share with students.
Mhm. Another question I have, is there any some kind of like a agreement between Reba and AIA, or that like can you practice in the US and vice versa?
Reba has an arrangement with Council of Architecture. Council of Architecture, COA, is a supreme body.
Mm.
So they have an arrangement. But our recent time, Reba has stopped coming. I don't know the reason behind it, but this accreditation has suddenly stopped. I see the reason behind it because a lot of British master's degree 1 year, council do not recognize that. So maybe, I don't know, there is something that is going on I'm not aware of, but those accreditation have been stopped. So I don't know
Well,
really
I'm talking about with American Institute of Architects.
no, we don't have any tie with American Institute of Architects. Although council recognizes some degrees, for example, if you graduate from Harvard, MIT, I think University of Florida is there. There are many universities that recognize that degree, which is equal to Indian MArch degree. And moment you have that, then licensing is not difficult.
The reason I'm asking is I look at the number of architects in India, it's around 23,000. The US is 50,000. Italy is 153,000, which is practicing. I visited Italy frequently, and they have so many architects that practicing architects in Italy is very difficult. And that's architect, and they also have to compete with engineers and a drafter who have equal access to project. So I thought like, well, India is such a huge nation. not as many architects as the US. So you guys, American architects, future American architect, might actually trying to persuade India to to allow you to collaborate.
Well,
Because such a
I'll tell
huge-
you my rough estimate. I would say almost 60% of housing is
Mm,
is is handled by any other person than architect in India.
mm, mm,
So it's a large amount of work where architects are not involved.
mm.
So it's a very urban centric profession. I mean, if you go to the small towns, virtually you don't get architects.
Right. And then India, I just want to remind my student, India is the next biggest economy in the world. So I think maybe you need to really pay very carefully about India as a destination. So any other question from?
Yes, at the beginning of your talk, you said that your company, KRVIA,
Yeah.
is looking at climate change. Have you come up with any recommendations or determinations about what architects can do in that regard in design?
Well, first of all, KRVI is an architecture and environmental studies institute. So we engage with lots of environmental related issues in the city. Climate change, we have embarked on it recent time, and we are doing a lot of studies. For example, urban heat island studies. We have put the sensors, and we are slowly moving into it. My visit to University of Florida last year engaged with this discussion that we could use this opportunity to create this conference jointly in India. So for us also, this is something that we are concerned about, and it would be good to collaborate and kind of exchange the knowledge. So we do not have really that kind of expertise, but we are working on it.
Thank you.
Any other question? You said that you're going to show us some sample of your work. Manoj.
But I just I don't know. I think on this laptop I don't know whether it has difficult.
Well, did you so your collaboration with Vandana, are you did you come to UF before?
Yes.
Okay.
May I was there in the month of May. I
Mm.
met your I think 3-4 deans from different departments, and the director.
David.
Yeah.
Well, let us know in next time you come to UF. Maybe we should arrange
Yeah.
a meeting.
Definitely would love to meet and discuss this the course module that you are conducting. It's an interesting I think way of getting exposure to international scenarios of practice.
We have one former faculty who live in Mumbai, and he has a practice also in Mumbai and in Chandigarh. His name is Cherry Sidhu.
Sidhu. SIDDHU. That's correct. SID.
Yes. Let me see.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Well, I mean, his Indian name is SHIVITA SHIVIJT, and then his last name is SIDHU. Yeah, DHU.
Oh.
But I call him
Sidhu.
Chevy.
Oh, fine. Chevy. Okay. All right. Let me look at it. I have not heard of. But Christopher Banninger is a very prominent figure in India.
Yeah,
very prominent figure.
we used to send students
He's a-
to his office for internship.
yeah. Yeah, they are doing some very, very large projects.
Mhm. Well, one last question. Anyone wants to ask question? Well, Manoj, thank you so much for coming, and let's continue this conversation. And
Interesting. I mean, I would like to invite you for a talk with our similar course we run, and it would be interesting to look at the other perspective on this. I also like to thank you for giving this opportunity to have this interaction, and thank you everyone.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thanks.